Welcome back, Nightmare Hunters. And if you're new here, a huge welcome to the HOA Nightmare Files, your ultimate destination for jaw-dropping true stories of HOA overreach and the epic battles against it. Before we dive into today's unbelievable tale, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below. And while you're down there, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you're always the first to find out when our latest HOA nightmare hits the screen. All right, let's get into this video.
My name is Elara, and this cabin, this lake, this whole world around me, it's been in my family for generations. My grandfather, Arthur, built this place with his own hands. Every plank, every nail, every fishing story whispered on that dock, it's all part of him. He was a man of few words, but his presence was like an old-growth oak, sturdy, dependable, and deeply rooted. When he passed, leaving me this cabin, it felt like inheriting a piece of his soul. It was my sanctuary, a place where the water lapped against the shore with the calming rhythm of a heartbeat, and the worries of the world just drifted away. I spent my summers here as a kid, learning to fish, to tie knots, to listen to the quiet wisdom of the lake. My grandfather taught me how to putter around in his old wooden boat, a relic almost as old as the cabin itself, harbored safely in the boathouse he built himself. This place, nestled on the edge of what's now called Lakeside Pointe, felt gloriously separate from the manicured lawns and identical houses that had sprung up around the rest of the lake over the last couple of decades. We were old money, not in terms of wealth, but in terms of time, a deep, unyielding connection to the land that predated any modern development. Then, about 6 months ago, the first letter arrived, a crisp, formal envelope with the Lakeside Pointe Homeowners Association logo emblazoned proudly. I remember thinking, what could they possibly want with me? My property wasn't part of their development, or so I thought. The letter was a cordial yet firm notice regarding my unauthorized watercraft and structure on what they referred to as community lake access points. My grandfather's beloved boat and boathouse, unauthorized, it felt like a punch to the gut. They demanded immediate removal, citing bylaw 7.3.b regarding aesthetics and public access. Now, I'm not one to jump to conclusions, but something felt off. My grandfather had always been meticulous about his affairs. He'd lived there for over 70 years without a single peep from any association. I tucked the letter away, figuring it was a mistake, a bureaucratic oversight. A week later, another letter arrived, this one less cordial, more insistent, mentioning escalating fines. My tranquility was being systematically chipped away. I started seeing their HOA security patrols. Not real security, mind you, but 2 middle-aged men in golf carts, dressed in tactical vests that seemed to wear them rather than the other way around. One, a burly man with a tan so deep he looked like he'd been spray-painted with disappointment, would eye my dock with a possessive stare. The other, a wiry fellow whose smile was plastered on, a cheap veneer over a house of cards, would actually take pictures of my boat. It felt invasive, violating. Their pervasive presence was increasingly irritating, like an unskippable ad. Then came the Karen. Her name was Brenda, and she was the self-proclaimed queen of Lakeside Pointe HOA. Her eyebrows were perfectly sculpted, like tiny, angry caterpillars planning world domination. She had an aura of self-importance that permeated every interaction, a woman who wore confidence like a slightly ill-fitting toupee, noticeable but doing its job. Brenda approached my property one afternoon, a clipboard clutched in her hand like a sacred scroll, her voice when she spoke a sharp, insistent whine. "Miss Elara, I presume," she began, not waiting for a response. "I'm Brenda Sterling, president of the Lakeside Pointe HOA. We've sent you several notices regarding this structure," she waved dismissively at my boathouse, "and your boat. They are in clear violation. This lake is common property, designated for the enjoyment of all residents. Your private installations impede that. I calmly explained that my family had owned this property, including the lakefront, for decades before their development even existed. This isn't common property to me, Miss Sterling. It's my property. Her lips tightened. The plat maps on file with the association clearly indicate the lake is communal. Your grandfather may have assumed ownership, but I assure you, those days are long past. She looked around, as if expecting me to spontaneously dismantle my boathouse. We've even had complaints about the rustic nature of your dock. It doesn't align with the aesthetic standards of Lakeside Pointe. Rustic? It was made of reclaimed timber, a testament to my grandfather's craftsmanship. I felt a slow burn building. My grandfather wouldn't have built anything on land he didn't own, Miss Sterling. She scoffed. Well, times change, laws change. The HOA's jurisdiction extends to all common areas, and this lake is a common area. Then she pointed a perfectly manicured finger at a small, weathered sign near my property line, one I barely noticed anymore. We'll be removing your boat and boathouse by the end of the month, if you fail to comply. The costs will, of course, be added to your escalating fines. With that, she turned on her heel and strutted back to her golf cart, leaving me fuming. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her words, "Your grandfather may have assumed ownership," echoed in my mind. My grandfather assumed nothing. He was precise. He kept everything. And then it hit me. The attic. My grandfather's attic was legendary. A treasure trove of forgotten memories, dusty boxes, and a bizarre collection of antique birdhouses. It was a chaotic symphony of forgotten relics. Early the next morning, I climbed the rickety stairs, the air thick with the scent of old paper and dust motes dancing in the shafts of sunlight. Box after box, trunk after trunk, old fishing gear, military uniforms, a bizarre collection of antique birdhouses. I was about to give up when I saw it. A large wooden chest tucked away behind a stack of moth-eaten blankets. It looked like something a pirate might keep. Inside, carefully wrapped in oilcloth, were meticulously folded maps, legal documents, and a series of leather-bound journals. The journals were my grandfather's. His neat, precise handwriting filled page after page, detailing his life, his thoughts, and his deep connection to this land. And then I found it. Tucked within the pages of the oldest journal, a hand-drawn map, faded but legible, clearly outlining not just the cabin property, but the entire 350-acre lake. And another document, a deed dated 1923 with florid calligraphy and official-looking stamps. It stated that Arthur Sterling, my great-grandfather, purchased not just the surrounding land, but all riparian and the water body known as Lake Serenity in its entirety. My heart hammered. This was it. This was the proof. But would the HOA accept it? I remembered Brenda's dismissive tone. I knew I needed official confirmation. My next stop was the county records office. It was a cavernous building smelling of old paper and stale coffee. I spent days there, poring over microfiche, flipping through enormous ledgers. The clerks, initially helpful, became increasingly puzzled as my requests grew more specific, delving further back into the county's history. It felt like I was tracing a ghostly outline of a world that no longer existed, overshadowed by the modern subdivisions. Finally, with the help of a kind elderly archivist who appreciated my dedication to history, we found it. Nestled among records dating back to the turn of the 20th century, there it was, the original land grant, followed by the meticulously documented sale to my great-great-grandfather. The legal description was undeniable, including, but not limited to, the entirety of Lake Serenity, its bed, and all appurtenant water rights. The document explicitly stated that the lake was private property, owned by the holder of the adjacent parcel, which was, unequivocally, my family. It was all there, recorded, notarized, and entirely legal. It turned out my family didn't just own the edge of the lake, we owned the whole damn lake. I walked out of that office feeling like I'd unearthed a lost civilization. The weight of generations of ownership settled on my shoulders, a sense of profound responsibility mixed with righteous fury. Brenda Sterling and her little HOA knew nothing of history, nothing of true property rights. I decided to present my findings at the next HOA board meeting. I arrived early, clutching a large, heavy binder filled with copies of every document, map, and journal entry I'd found. The meeting room was a sterile, brightly lit space filled with the usual suspects, disgruntled homeowners and the self-important board members, all presided over by Brenda, perched at the head of the table like a queen on her throne. She surveyed the room, her gaze sweeping over me with a dismissive air. The meeting started with mundane discussions about landscaping and pool maintenance. My turn came under new business. Brenda, with a condescending smile, introduced me. "And now, Ms. Elara, I believe you have some concerns regarding your property." Her tone suggested my concerns were trivial at best. I stood, cleared my throat, and spoke, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "Yes, Ms. Sterling, I do. Concerns about your association's repeated attempts to unlawfully claim my private property." A ripple of murmurs went through the room. Brenda's smile flickered. "Ms. Elara, we've been over this. The lake is community property. Your boathouse and boat are violations." "With all due respect, Ms. Sterling," I said, opening my binder with a dramatic flourish, "you are mistaken, profoundly mistaken." I pulled out a copy of the 1923 deed. This document, recorded in county archives, confirms that my family purchased this land and, more importantly, the entirety of Lake Serenity in 1923. Before any of your homes, before any of your association. I then displayed the hand-drawn map from my grandfather's journal, cross-referenced with the modern plat maps. This lake, its bed, and all access points are private property, my private property. They always have been. Brenda's face, usually so composed, began to falter. Her eyebrows, usually so dominant, seemed to twitch. She leaned forward, trying to read the documents from across the table. "This is preposterous. These are old papers. We have official modern plat maps." "And those modern plat maps," I retorted, my voice gaining strength, "were drawn incorrectly, or perhaps deceptively. The original county records, which supersede any developer survey or HOA's interpretation, clearly show my family's ownership. The lake never became community property because it was never for sale to the community. It was and remains privately owned." The board members exchanged nervous glances. One, a man who always seemed to be adjusting his tie, cleared his throat. "Brenda, is this true?" "Of course not," she snapped, her voice rising. "She's fabricating documents. This is a tactic to avoid compliance." "Fabrication?" I challenged, my blood boiling. "These are notarized official county records. You can go down to the archives yourselves and verify every single detail. Furthermore, your security personnel have been trespassing on my private land, taking pictures and attempting to interfere with my property. That, Miss Sterling, is harassment and a clear violation of my rights. And the fines you've levied, those are illegal." I then presented printouts of the state statutes regarding property rights and adverse possession, highlighting sections that protected private ownership against such claims. "You've been operating under a false premise, essentially claiming land that isn't yours. This isn't just an HOA dispute anymore. It's a matter of documented land theft and harassment. And if this is not rectified immediately, I will be pursuing legal action, seeking not only the cessation of all your activities on my property and the removal of all fines, but also compensation for harassment, legal fees, and potential damages for the emotional distress your association has caused. The room was silent. Brenda looked like a fish out of water, mouth working but no sound coming out. Her usual imperious demeanor had crumbled like a sandcastle in a tide. The other board members, suddenly very interested in their shoes, seemed to shrink in their seats. Finally, the HOA's lawyer, a somber man named Mr. Henderson, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. "Brenda, if these documents are verified, and I suspect they are, given Ms. Elara's detailed presentation, then we have a very serious problem. A very serious problem indeed. The association could face significant legal liabilities. Ms. Elara's claims of trespassing and harassment would hold substantial merit. It would be an incredibly expensive and likely losing battle." Brenda's face went from pale to a mottled red. Her eyebrows, usually so dominant, seemed to twitch. She leaned forward, trying to read the documents from across the table. "This is preposterous. We have modern plat maps." "And those modern plat maps, Mr. Henderson," said patiently, "are no longer a valid consideration if the lake itself is private property. Any access your residents have enjoyed thus far has been by the tacit permission or perhaps unawareness of the rightful owner. That permission, I assume, is now rescinded." He looked at me, a question in his eyes. "Absolutely," I confirmed, my gaze fixed on Brenda. "Until such time as a formal, legal agreement can be reached, and I assure you that will come at a significant cost to the association, no one associated with Lakeside Pointe HOA is to set foot on my dock, my boathouse, or the waters of Lake Serenity without my express written permission. Any attempts to do so will be met with legal force." The silence that followed was deafening. The queen of Lakeside Pointe had been dethroned, not by a coup, but by a stack of century-old papers. Within a week, an official, heavily apologetic letter arrived from the HOA. All fines were rescinded, all demands for removal were withdrawn, and a terse, almost painful note at the bottom stated that Lakeside Pointe HOA acknowledges and respects the private ownership of Lake Serenity by the Elara family, and will cease all previous claims of jurisdiction over the lake and associated structures. Brenda Sterling, I heard through the grapevine, resigned from her position as president, citing personal health reasons. Her departure was swift, almost a vanishing act. The community reaction was fascinating. Many homeowners who had silently resented Brenda's overbearing rule now approached me with congratulations, even awe. They had suffered under the HOA's micromanagement, from ridiculous landscaping rules to arbitrary fees. And my victory against Brenda was seen as a victory for everyone. The tranquility I'd lost for those agonizing months slowly returned, deeper and more profound than before. My boat, the Arthur, still bobs gently in the boathouse, a quiet sentinel to generations of unbroken ownership. This place is more than just a cabin now. It's a testament to my grandfather's foresight, my family's history, and the powerful truth that you should never, ever underestimate someone quietly piecing together the past. So the next time an HOA tries to tell you what you can and can't do on your own property, remember Elara and Lake Serenity. Sometimes all it takes is a little digging to discover you own the whole damn lake.